and wish that we are going to have a fruitful meeting. We only have 2 presentations. As Valerie has said, feel free to participate and ask pertinent questions as we always do. You are warmly welcomed, honorable members, officials from the Portfolio Committee, officials from the department, and the 2 entities that we are meeting today, PRSA and RSR. I am trying to get the deputy minister or the minister to kickstart the process. Magaipi, you want to tell me something?
No, Chair, good afternoon. I wanted to just tell you we can hear you from the department because we are worried if we cannot hear you.
Okay. Is there body from the 2 offices, the minister or the deputy minister?
Yeah, I see now that the deputy minister is locked off. There might be connection problems because Ms. Mpondo says she's also struggling with load shedding. So I think that is going to be another challenge this afternoon again, with people losing connection and being on and off.
Let's do what happened to me yesterday. You don't get me, you continue with the meeting. And I took it professionally because it is the way it has to happen. In that case, let me allow the deputy chair from the RSR to introduce the team and tell us where is the chair.
Honorable Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee on Transport, Honorable Minister of Transport, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, Honorable Deputy Minister of Transport, Ms. Sindiswa Chikunga, Acting Director General of the Department of Transport, Mr. Mkunzi Matia, Deputy Director General, Rail Transport, Mr. Ngwago Makaipia, members of the Railway Safety Regulator Board of Directors, Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Railway Safety Regulator, Mr. Muso Silaledi, executives from the Railway Safety Regulator, representatives from the National Department of Transport, ladies and gentlemen, as already indicated, speaking before the committee is Yongama Kamla. I am the Deputy Chairperson of the Board of the Railway Safety Regulator, and I am representing the Chairperson of the Board, Mr. Johannes Nobunga, who sends his humble and sincere apology that he could not attend. With me today are members of the board, the acting CEO, Mr. Muso Silaledi, and the executive team. It is an honor and a pleasure to address the Portfolio Committee on Transport on the Railway Safety Regulator's performance for the 2020-21 financial year. This is the second year that we are having virtual engagements due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, which has necessitated that we settle into new ways of doing business. Judging by the stellar performance of the RSR during the 2020-21 financial year, I dare say that the RSR has embraced the new normal and continue to find ways to further strengthen its response to emerging COVID-19 related information. Honorable Chairperson and members, it gives me great pleasure to announce that the RSR did not only achieve 100% of its planned annual performance target, but it also obtained its first clean audit from the Auditor General of South Africa. This is a defining moment for the RSR, and this is testament to excellent stewardship and commitment by the board, executive team, and staff. The efforts of the RSR over the past few years, which are rooted in building a culture of excellence, accountability, and clean governance, have been deliberate to ensure that this achievement becomes attainable. The RSR sustained its contribution towards the Department of Transport's goal of ensuring efficient and effective rail transport in the direction of government's key priorities in line with the medium-term strategic framework that clearly pronounces the agenda of building a stronger economy for South Africa. Over the last financial year, the regulator executed various strategies and plans to ensure that the organization remains equipped to meet the demands of the industry it serves and positively contribute to a safer rail sector. These strategies and plans will be outlined in today's presentation. In contributing to the framework as it relates to priority 1, which addresses transforming the economy to serve all South Africans and create jobs, the regulator utilized its procurement spend on designated groups such as women, youth, and SMMEs. A substantial portion of total procurement was expended on BBBE compliant suppliers, which with close to 20% and 10% spent on women-owned and youth-owned companies, respectively. In response to increasing critical skills in South Africa in general and in the rail sector, the regulator awarded bursaries to 12 students and employed 12 interns to provide them with work experience and increase their future employability in the market. In line with priority 7 of the framework, which is to build a better Africa and world, the regulator was appointed as the Secretariat for the Regional Rail Regulatory Association of Southern Africa, and in this way cemented our relationship with fellow regulators in Southern Africa. The role of the Secretariat in this regard is to facilitate engagements for the working group of the Regional Rail Regulatory Association of Southern Africa, and to ensure that the applicable terms of reference are developed, approved, and implemented. The RSR continued to participate in the railway safety activities in the SADC region and participated in various task teams and work group sessions. These sessions focused on the review of the design specifications, as well as the evolution of technical development and international best practices in the maintenance and rehabilitation of the tracks. As depicted in the State of the Safety report that was released by the regulator just a few weeks ago, the past year had its fair share of challenges. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in a decrease in combined traffic levels of major operators. Moreover, operators experienced a considerable rise in theft and vandalism of the rail infrastructure. Despite these challenges, we continue to work together with industry players to find a lasting solution. The safety of our passengers, goods, and communities remain our main priority. Honorable Chairperson, please allow me to pause and hand over to the Acting CEO to present our annual report in more detail. I thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Let me allow the Acting CEO to take us through. I would want a situation where you should have wrapped up your presentation by at least 5 to 5, that is 16:55, to allow us enough time to engage. Thank you. You can carry on. Acting CEO.
Chairperson. Afternoon, members of the committee. Yes, Chair.
Yes, you can forge ahead. Acting or deputy chair of RSR. Mepamla, we seemingly having a problem with your acting CEO. I wouldn't want to waste time. Can we deal with that matter and get a stand-in the meantime?
Certainly, Chair, and apologies for the technical glitches. We are following up on the matter, and somebody will present in a short while. Apologies once again.
Thank you very much. Somebody come in.
Seems technology is winning, Chair.
Mkhayes.
You can step aside.
We are trying to connect, but I think he's gone. He's connected now.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Afternoon, Chair.
Afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Chair. Afternoon to the members of the committee. Great apologies that I'm not able to put on my camera. We are just in Rustenburg, preparing for a level crossing session we're going to have with the community. Apologies, our connection is very bad, Chair. Therefore, I won't put on my camera if you will allow.
I am allowing, I know Rustenburg, somebody, one of the honorable members lives there. He always operates without a camera. You can forge ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mrumpe. My name is Muso Selaledi. I'm the acting CEO of the Railway Safety Regulator. The board is led today by Ms. Yonga Mapamla. She's the deputy chairperson of the board, together with some board members. I'm accompanied by executives. I got your notes, Chair, that we should wrap up by 5:02. Hopefully we'll be done by then. The apologies of our board chairperson have been noted, and I will go right into it, Chair. The presentation is for our 2020-21 annual report. If we move to the next slide, which is one of our signature achievements for the year, they were twofold. One, we were able to achieve 100% of our performance outcomes for the year. And together with that, we were able to achieve a clean audit for the first time in the history of the entity, which is something we are very proud of. If we look at the table of contents, this is what it looks like. On slide 4, we go to our strategic focus of the regulator. Our vision is safe, reliable, and sustainable railway operations. It's driven through our mission. And then our values, you can see, are integrity, transparency, fairness, innovation, timely and accountable delivery, mutual respect, and excellence. We then move to the next slide, please, Cheryl. Our strategic drivers, they are fourfold. One, we have a risk-based approach to safety. This risk-based approach is premised upon reducing the risk to as low as practically possible. We do that through the regulatory instruments that through the department are promulgated and through the compliance monitoring activities we perform. All of them are risk-based, and are aimed at reducing the risk in the railway environment to as low as reasonably possible. As with all state-owned entities, good governance and clean administration is a pillar of our strategic focus areas. Financial sustainability is important, as with all state-owned entities. And then particular to us is stakeholder engagement. Even though we are responsible for overseeing safe railway operations, and operators are primarily responsible for ensuring that they carry out safe operations, we also have a responsibility around education and awareness. And this we carry out through our stakeholder engagement initiatives. When we move to the strategic risks of the entity, the first one being around cybersecurity vulnerability, members would be aware that Transnet, who is also in the rail portfolio, has had their fair share of these cyber attacks, and state-owned entities are coming to, this is coming to the fore. So as a regulator, we are also acutely aware, dealing with operator data. This cybersecurity vulnerability is top of mind, and it is a risk that we adequately mitigate. Secondly is around inaccurate and incomplete safety information. The Act requires us to maintain what we call NIMS, which is the National Information Management System. That is where we house all operator data, and that is the primary technology platform where we carry out our mandate. So this risk is about the information that is stored there being inaccurate or incomplete, and the mitigations are there around the verification of data, and where necessary, we do allow operators to submit manually, but we try to reduce that as far as possible. Continuing, are risks around an inadequate regulatory framework. So our shareholder department, we're very happy that they have been assisting the regulator. They are promulgating the necessary regulatory instruments, and save for the ones that are in our strategic plan over the next 3 or 4 years that still need to be promulgated, we are satisfied that the regulatory framework over the industry is sufficient. The next one is around a lack of independence. This is a risk as a regulator must continuously be top of mind. Being a regulator, we must carry out our mandate without fear and without favor. We do that with the support of our department, our shareholder ministry being the Department of Transport. At the bottom, we have loss of key skilled personnel as a risk. As we know from the priorities of government, we want to build a capable and developmental state, and that is premised upon having professionals and a professional and capable public service. So that is one of the risks we monitor closely. Then when we move, we have financial sustainability. As I said, all state-owned entities must ensure that they are financially sustainable. We know the pressures on the fiscus, so this is one thing that we look at very closely through the Office of the CFO and the various executives that support. Then we have inadequate stakeholder buy-in for our initiatives. As I say, we are in Rustenburg now. We are at a level crossing tomorrow that is called Dr. Moroka. It is one where there was an accident around 5 years ago. So as part of our initiatives, we are then conducting an awareness session with motorists. There's a school that is right next to that level crossing where learners cross across to the other side of the community. We are involving the municipality, the people of our stakeholder initiatives, and SALGA, why we need to partner with all those various institutions. And we know issues around the rail reserve are top of mind for portfolio committee members, protection of the rail reserve. These also come into play, but they require community involvement. That's why these initiatives are so important to the regulator, and we'll be carrying that out tomorrow, as I said, joined by the Deputy Minister, the MECs, board members, and the various members of the community. When I move to our performance highlights for the year, Chair, if you see the graph we have been dabbling with this 100% achievement. We have now achieved it again. We first got it in 2018-19, 2020-2021. We have also managed to achieve all of our performance objectives. We then explain them a bit as we cut across the government priorities, which is the next slide. So under outcome 1, the performance initiatives or the objectives under our annual performance plan for outcome 1, we've linked them to the apex priority around advanced national building and social cohesion. So all the regulatory instruments are under this outcome. the occurrence reporting categories, the industry-wide hazard log. That industry-wide hazard log drives our signature instrument over the next 5 years, being our safety risk model, where we aim to plot the industry by risk and better understand the drivers of risk from a precursor basis rather than being reactive. So that industry-wide hazard log is around that strategic target. The railway management maturity model, we call it the RM3. We've done some work on it on the big operators, PRSA, TFR, BOC, and we've shared these results with the operators and how they can improve. The verbal safety critical communication, it's now being developed as a standard, and it's around, to practicalize it, how train drivers communicate with the TCOs, the specific language that should be used and the protocols that should be followed. We are driving that through a standard. We have the interface agreements framework, which we have also developed in the financial year. As members of the portfolio committee and yourself, Chair, would be aware, the President did initiate the reconstructive and develop the plan around economic recovery plan, third-party access to the rail network to expand competition in the sector. Our contribution as the regulator lies around the safety element, and we drive that safety element for relating to interface agreements in what we call the interface agreements framework. Then we have the National Rail Communicators Forum, where we collaborate with our various sister SOEs and other partners in the rail sector. And we've also gone to conducting research in the last financial year. There were 2 specific research papers the entity produced, one around level crossings, which is why we are having our stakeholder engagement tomorrow. Another one is around personal safety of trains in the train station precinct. Those are research that we are proud of, and we are continuing in the current financial year. What we have then on the next slide is we have outcome 2, which is around good governance and clean administration. That outcome, I don't know if it's still showing, Chair, but yeah, they will assist us with the presentation. So that is slide 14 around good governance and clean administration. So there we have transforming the economy. That's the apex priority we have linked to, transforming the economy to serve all South Africans and create jobs. There we are indicating the various elements where our annual report touches around our BEE spend, around our spend on women-owned companies, youth-owned companies, and emerging macro entities. So that is slide 13. On slide 14, we then cut across to explain what the entity has done in the apex priority around investing in the capabilities of all people. May I continue, Chair?
Chair, it seems like Ms. Walters lost connection. If we can't get her online, then we will flight it from our side.
Is that a point of order called by Uba Uketamaba? I was looking at the presentation from my side. It's okay. Do that, Valerie. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I'm on slide 14. Also on slide 14, I've narrated around, we had issued awarded bursaries to qualifying students to the tune of R1 million. We've appointed interns, and we've entered into a secondment agreement with what is called the African Rail Industry Association. We've signed a memorandum of understanding with them, and we're looking to partner with them on more initiatives throughout the financial year. Under outcome 3, which is slide 15, we talk about tackling the persistence of apartheid spatial planning and around human settlements and safe towns. There we continue our work with SALGA, especially around the rail reserve and the various municipalities that are involved and the network, the infrastructure owners. We've indicated their key matters for collaboration, particularly on rail compliance by municipalities. And then around the building a better Africa in the world, We have traditionally been part of SARA, which we continue to be part of, which is the South African Railways Association. Within SARA, the RSR is also piloting and also leading the development of the Regional Regulators Association for Rail. So amongst the work that is being done by the ministers through the SADC protocols and work program, we are leading the work around the Regional Regulators Association, which we are very proud of. We then narrate aspects around our human resource development. Slide 17, we try to give a graphical view of where our offices are located and how many staff we have in those various offices. We further break that down on slide 18 around our employment equity, breaking it down into top management, senior management, professionally qualified, skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled, and the various race groups. On slide 19, we translate the table you see on slide 18 into a graph on slide 19 for ease of reference for members. The next slide from slide 20 on, Chair, that relates to our financial position. On slide 21, we celebrate the achievements around our clean audit. As you will see on slide 22, Chairperson, we've showed the history of the audit outcomes. So we had traditionally been on unqualified opinion, but we had struggled in some areas, particularly around SCM, in order to attain the clean audit. In the 2020-2021 financial year, we finally did manage to attain the clean audit, which is unqualified without any material audit findings. And as you will see, that coincided with reducing the number of audit findings. So of the 5 that remain, we've just given the nature of findings at the bottom, but we are confident we will even address those 5 to ensure that there are no repeat audit findings. Under the BBBE Act, what the finding there related to, once you have completed your annual report, there are certain disclosures that you must fill in and submit to the BEE Commission. In the last financial year, it transpired that we submitted it a month late. Instead of, I think, around November or December, we submitted it in January. And we are tightening the ends around that. We won't slip up again on that, Chair, just to clarify what that was about. On slide 22, it shows the revenue. Our revenue has been quite stable, looking at the government grant, but also looking at our permit fee and our other revenues. Those have been quite stable year on year. And we aim not to put the industry under pressure so that operators don't feel that they are being squeezed financially. That is an important element in how we carry out our mandate. In terms of financial health, on slide 24, Chairperson, we had revenue of 259 million. At the end of the year, our accounting surplus was around 2 million, and our cash surplus at the end of the year was around 121 million, which was cash and cash equivalent, cash in the bank, investments, and those type. Was around 121 million for the financial year, Chairperson. That brings me to the end of the presentation, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tate Silaledi. Mr. Tsepo or Mrs. Tsepo Hari, what do you want to say?
Hi, Chairperson. The computer, I was having connection problems.
Oh, okay.
I took a laptop, Chair. You will forgive me.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, there we are. Let me see hands of honorable members who wants to participate and congratulate the clean audit by RSR. It's a big thing. Any other hand? Job ekwenzeka ukuthi usoyangena ke wena ngingakubizanga. That Emakhosini, you'll be number 2. Any other hand? Okay. I will take those two hands. No trains match. Arem or nango babu ketamaba. 3 hands. Mkhayes.
Dula setulo wa kopano ke a go leboga mo letsatsi la gompieno ga ke tle go tlhagisa video ya me ke tshaba yone connection e bokoa e ka ntlhagelelang ka kwano ke tatoga ke tshwana le bagaetsho ko Rustenburg ke ka kwa. Chair, I just want to ask a question that is completely unrelated to the presentation. But also I would want to welcome the presentation and also congratulate the entity on the clean audit. I do indeed hope that the clean audit does in actual fact materialize also to the service or the kind of service that the entity does in actual fact deliver. So congratulations to the acting CEO and the team, and we hope that the momentum carries throughout. Chair, in the municipality of Greater Taung, in particular in areas close to Makgokgong village on the N18, as you go to Jan Kempdorp, it has been over 2 years now that we've had a train carrier that had been carrying wheat that had had an accident there, and those particular wreckages are still there. I wanted to ask the entity what their role is in respect of such incidences, if they have any role whatsoever in that regard, and if they are aware of this particular incident that took place over 2 years ago in that particular area that I have highlighted here in the Northwest.
Rialebu amkoni. Ya dulang Bokone Bophirima. Ha re nke mokoni ya dulang Botjhabela Thabeng tsa Maluti. Ngena Ngwane.
Thank you, Chair. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate the RSR for the clean audit that they have obtained. My first question would be, what amount of money did you give to students of South Africa as bursary? If you don't have figures, you can submit them later. And what do you do with them after completing their studies, besides hiring them as part-time interns? What measures did you put in place in order to tighten the security of passengers, especially in Gauteng, where in the past they were pickpocketed and gang raped in the trains? And lastly, are your level crossing well manned? Unlike before, are the robots well functioning? If the electricity is dysfunctional, what is your plan B? Do you use generators or control lights as a measure of safety? Thank you very much.
Asibonge Ngwane. Ngena Mondisi.
Mangete, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. First of all, we want to thank the RSR for their clean audit. But if they can just qualify me to understand these five findings, when are they going to fix it? Because they have to get a clean audit without any findings. And the other Chairperson that I'm trying to check, how many students have they give them the bursary per province, if that one can be qualified for them? And the last one, Chairperson, I'm trying to check their relationship between them and the PRSA, because there was some queries before. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Ntate Slaledi. E re pele ke tla ho wena ke re o ntate o mohlomphehi
Okay.
ya Kgabane thabeng tsa Maluti kwa a theole letsoho la hae pele le kgathala. Honorable Makosini, your hand is up. Can you lower your hand? Thank you very much for cooperation. Ditaba ke tseo he a re utlweng hore le ikarabela ka dife.
Thank you to the honorable members for the questions. I'll attempt to answer them as best as I can. The first question that is being asked by the honorable member related to the accident around the M18 on Jan Kempdorp. Thank you for alerting us, honorable member. Just to remind the portfolio committee, operators are responsible for conducting investigations on all of their occurrences. The RSR then has a prioritization mechanism within our own policies where we decide which occurrences require us to investigate them. Where we decide to investigate, we conduct a preliminary investigation, and that preliminary investigation directs us as to what further actions or further investigations are required, either from the RSR or from the operator themselves. So I thank the honorable member for alerting me. I'm not personally aware of that accident. I've asked the COO, she's also not directly aware, so we will put that in a written response to the committee once I get back to the office and get further details, honorable member. Dadima Kosini, he asked around the bursaries. So our bursaries that we dispersed were around 1.6 million, if I understand from the finance team. Which was around 12 students that we were sponsoring. One of the challenges being a small entity, we have in total around 160 staff, and our establishment has around 185 positions. We don't always have the opportunity to take in the students, even once they completed their studies. Another dynamic is being a regulator. The operators expect our inspectors and our personnel to be more knowledgeable around their operations, to be able to play an advisory role and to be able to inspect. So our approach is we don't take students directly out of university. We require them to go and gather the necessary skills at the operators so that when they do join the regulator, they at least have practical experience having worked in train operations or amongst the various sidings so that they can understand the regulations and be able to carry out the oversight and inspection mandate that we have. In regards to the questions that were asked around our security around the station precinct, if honorable member will recall, during my presentation, I indicated we did a research paper around personal safety on trains within the station precinct. That gave a number of findings, a number of insights and recommendations around what can be done, even including some of the protection measures. Equally, we did another research around level crossings. And that level crossing research also gave us insights into what technologies could be deployed, what protection mechanisms can be put. And this is some of the research we've shared with operators. We are also driving it through the directives that we issue through to operators where possible. So from a regulator, that is what we've done. We are acutely aware that honorable members are very concerned around the security situation, not only in the station precinct, but also throughout the country. I think I'm aware TFR was presenting to the portfolio committee and they would have narrated the struggles they have around cable theft and how it's affecting their business. PRSA equally, when they come and present, they will narrate the issues around security. From a regulatory aspect, we conducted what we called a security assessment on PRSA. If you will recall, last year we gave them a permit and it had one condition, and that special condition was for PRSA to do a security assessment. We then conducted the security assessment with PRSA, and through our board, we shared the report. I shared it with the Group CEO of PRSA, and our board convened a meeting chaired by the two board chairpersons, Mr. Bueno Bunga from our board and Tate Ramatlagare from the PRSA board. And they convened a meeting of the boards where we did delve into the security issue and present the findings of this report. We have left the report with PRSA, and we will return, I think, in January or so, to assess implementation of our recommendations. So we are acutely aware of the security situation and the feelings of honorable members around that. There was a question more succinctly around level crossing. What are the specific protection measures? So this level crossing we are going to tomorrow. There was an accident. We did an investigation report. We suggested some protection measures, which include booms at the signage, also include. So one of the challenges that arose in the implementation is because the asset intersects various players, either the municipality, the infrastructure owner being Transnet, or the provincial government. It was a question of who will fund the infrastructure and who will maintain it. The operator has made some commitments. We are now continuing to engage the municipality and the provincial government, but this narrates some of the challenges we have at the level crossing. So we do issue findings, and many of the times our findings are infrastructure related, and operators do indicate they have a financial constraint and it will take time and needs the necessary procurement. So that is to give an example. Some of the measures also include what we call grade separation or eliminating the crossing completely. We're embarking on a program we call level crossing elimination, which seeks to eliminate the level crossing completely if you can't build a bridge per se. These are some of the aspects we are looking at. It's a program we're initiating through the department, but also it requires funding. And so I'm narrating some of the challenges we face and some of the work we are doing. On the question from Honorable Ketambala around our 5 findings. So I did say the findings were around the BEE reporting to the commission. There was a finding around financial statements, disclosures in the financial statements, which the CFO will attend to, just to correct our disclosures. And then there were findings in the procurement space. There were 1 or 2, but these, we had a good go with the AG and conceded in the end, but they were around tax compliance. So if a supplier, you appoint a supplier, let's say you issue 3 quotes, they all respond today, but you only appoint the supplier in a week's time. AG felt that we needed to check the tax compliance, not only today, but also on the day we appoint. We explained that would render the business a bit dysfunctional because we would always be checking tax compliance. However, we conceded and we have put in place the necessary controls. So we are confident when they come back, those specific 5 findings, we will have addressed, and we are aiming to sustain our clean audit. The last question from the honorable member was around our relationship with PRSA. That relationship has significantly improved. Honorable members will remember in 2018, PRSA went to court, took the regulator to court because the regulator had indicated an intention to suspend their operating permit. They then went to court. That then resulted in the honorable judge putting us under judicial supervision, a situation none of the parties were happy with. And even from a department point of view, they were not happy that 2 entities that report to them could not solve their issues and headed to the courts. Since then, the department has played a key role in nurturing this relationship. We as a regulator are very happy to see the appointment of the group CEO and have indicated to him that we are looking forward to him stabilizing the leadership of PRSA at a group CEO and executive level. One of the elements we assess in our permit assessment is around leadership, and is the continuity of leadership, and is the leadership visible and stable. One of the reasons we are not yet at the point where we are issuing PRSA with a 3-year permit as we do to TFR or BOC is particularly around these leadership changes and instability. And we hope when they come for the next round of the permit assessment, the situation, the group CEO will have been able to carry across his plans, appoint the necessary leadership across the various business units, and we can have a conversation around this permit, the permit duration. Hopefully we'll be in a position to have that conversation. So as it stands now, the relationship has greatly improved. We do continue to conduct our work. We do continue to without fear or favor as the regulator. But as I said, the relationship has improved, and we are looking forward to it improving even more, and PRSA returning to operational stability and excellence, as I think the Group CEO will communicate in their presentation to the community.
That is a lady. How clean is your audit when there are still issues that we need to deal with? I think that was the question from Ubabuketa Mabala. Or how clean is this clean?
Honorable Ketamavala, thank you for the question. It is very clean. It's, if I was to narrate it, I would say it's just not spotless. Remember, we have 5 findings, but these findings, the AG has concluded they are not material. We are striving for excellence. We have 0 findings, but as we stand, it meets the definition of a clean audit, and we are indicating, we are pushing to sustain it. One of the things, honorable members, if you go through our annual report, that you will be able to pick up is, historically, we had a problem around irregular expenditure. If you look at this annual report, we have brought that balance down to 0 through, we have done that in the trenches. We have written to Treasury to ask for condemnations, and as you know, Treasury will not just give you condemnations. They want to know, was there consequence management? If there was human error, somebody must be disciplined. We have taken those disciplinary measures, even to the detriment sometimes of those taking the measures, but we have as an organization taken the disciplinary measures, and Treasury has accepted that we have done what we needed to do and has thus condoned, and our balance is 0. We are looking to keep that balance 0. Honorable members will see there is a balance in the fruitless and wasteful. When we return next year for the audit, for the annual report, that balance will also be 0. So it is a commitment we are making as an entity, and it is what we are looking to sustain. I hope that answers last two. Hello.
No, you have a clean audit that is not spotless. But the spots are not that much, and because of that, we regard it as a clean audit.
It's clean, last two.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, thank you very much to the committee. I do really want to say you have done very well, and it is of a bit of a concern to me that the chairperson is not here. Where is the chairperson, deputy chair?
Chair, he is currently traveling out of the country, and due to major differences in time zones and connectivity, he could not connect. And once again, I do send his humble and sincere apology. Whatever message you give today, I will make sure that it is delivered to him. Thank you, Chair.
The message is simple. The committee is very consistent that if we extend an invitation to an entity right on time, there should be no any other reason for the leadership to be here 100%, so that you show on your side that you are taking the legislature's Parliament seriously. We do not take it kind, although you have done so well, that we have given you an invitation timelessly, and the head of the institution, the chairperson of the institution, is traveling when the committee is called the entity. I wish you as a deputy chair to relate that message and say, we will remember next time if we don't see him in our meeting that we related this message to the board. Otherwise, we want to congratulate you for the hard work. Keep on doing the good work that you are doing. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Chair. We take the work of the legislature very seriously, and we commit to availing ourselves whenever we are called to present ourselves. And the message will certainly be passed on to the chairperson. Apologies once again.
Thank you very much. You are liberated from this meeting. We're happy about your clean audit once more. Thank you very much. We shall see you when we want to see you or when there's a need. Thank you very much. Continue doing the work that you need to do without any fear that you may trample on anybody's toes while doing your work. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. You are liberated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carol say.
Yes, Chairperson.
My agenda item says the next entity that must report in front of this honorable portfolio committee is PRSA. Am I right?
No, Chair, that is the Ports Regulator of South Africa, PRSA.
Or PRSA. Now, why did you leave me to say PRSA? Okay. PRSA, there's no A. Thank you very much. PRSA, are they here?
Chair, Ms. Mulawuzi was online a while ago. I don't see the CEO online, so hopefully there are some staff in the meeting already if they can confirm.
PRSA, let's hear. Anybody here?
Honorable Chair, Chozalem Mhlongo, the CFO, is in the floor. Thank you.
CEO on the floor. Can we pick you on the floor, CEO, to address us?
Yeah, try and make it landscape. And then also, whichever if you can't print it on an A3.
Thokozani?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Can you please request the CEO to stand up from the floor and address us?
I'm working on that, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, I think it's a connection problem because Ms. Mulawuzi was in the meeting from the start. So I think there must have just been a break in the connection that might make it difficult for the CEO to reconnect.
In the absence of the CEO, there is a team. I hope the team is capable for taking us through. That's what I'm looking for now. Unless I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear from the team. Babu Mhlongo.
Yes, Chair, I just spoke to the CEO. She's connecting in a moment. She was just having connection issues. Any second should be here.
Okay. If the CEO is not there, who will take us forward? Can we, in the meantime, beam the presentation?
Chair, Ms. Mulaudzi is connecting now. Just give us a minute, please, to share the co-host rights.
Okay. Baba umhlonishwa uMabhena uyaphila ba.
No, sithokoze sihlalo umuhle. Lokho ngisavukile.
Uma sengikhulume nawe noma umhlangano singawuvala sesicedile mfowethu.
Asivali Chairperson asivali.
Hayi, ngiyathokoza. Honorable Hunsinger. Honorable McDonald.
Chairperson.
Where is Honorable Hunsinger?
I can see being that.
I would say what is that?
Chair, you cannot be asking Honorable McDonald about the whereabouts of Honorable Hunsinger when myself and Honorable Mabhena are here. You are out of order, Chair.
So you're partilizing the portfolio committee, Mkhaisu.
No, that is besides the point. No, that is besides the point, Chair. If anybody will know where Honorable Hunsinger is, it is myself and Honorable Mabhena.
Forge ahead, sir. Okay. Valerie?
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Chair.
Good afternoon.
Let me just.
Okay. Valerie, are we winning?
Chair, we just need to hear from Ms. Mulaudzi about the connection. I've shared the co-host rights.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairperson. This is Joey Mulaudzi. I have managed to connect. Just try and see if I can share screen so that I can flight the presentation as well.
Good afternoon, Chairperson. Piet May speaking. I'm on my way to the airport. I'll be with you say for another 20 minutes. I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll be able to stay till the end of the meeting. Thank you very much. I'm on my way to Victoria.
Dank je baie, achtbare lede, ons verstaan dit.
Ja, ek dink voorsitter, maar nou maar eerder die parlement sluit, want dit lyk my is meer partywerk, nou is iets anders.
Nee, gaaf, ek verstaan dit baie.
Dankie.
Baie mooi. Dankie.
Chair, apology for Mrs. Luchundu. She's not feeling well, though I'm tendering it late. Chair.
Are we ready? Can we move?
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you, Honorable Member.
Okay.
It's 17 hours.
Thank you. Memlauzi?
Agenda de Zwani, can I confirm or la bona presentation? Okay, thank you. Chairperson, I am in the meeting with the Chairperson of the Board of the Ports Regulator, Dr. Victor Munyama. Through you, if you allow us for him to just do introductory remarks before we start with the presentation.
That has been a standard up to now. So over to you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chairperson.
Afternoon, colleagues. Am I audible?
You are both audible and visible.
Okay.
Continue.
I was just checking. I will switch off my my video. I was just making sure that at least people realize that you know, there's a human being behind the voice. Thank you so much, Chairperson and the Portfolio Committee of Transport, Honorable Mtsf Goals, and the honorable members of the committee as well. I did not realize, or I'm not sure here if we have the Honorable Minister, and I think I had an apology, which might have been the Deputy Minister, if not mistaken. So I'm not quite sure if they are present here, but in the absence of that, we'll just continue. The officials from the Department of Transport, probably led by the acting DG, Mr. Madia, the CEO of the Post Regulator, Ms. Joe Mrauzi, and the CFO, Mr. Thokozani Mtlongo. Chairperson, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank the committee for the opportunity to present the annual report of the Post Regulator for the financial year 2021. The CFO and the CEO will be taking us through that presentation. Just to highlight a few things from my side, as you are all aware, the regulator's responsibility as outlined in the National Ports Act, the legislation that you have entrusted in us to enable us to continue doing our work. Entrusting us a few responsibilities that we need to look at and make sure that that's carried out. Just to highlight that, you know, we are entrusted with exercising economic regulation of the port system, and that has to be done in line with the government's strategic objectives. The promotion of equity of access to the ports and to facilities and services provided, and also monitoring the activities of the National Ports Authority to ensure that it performs its functions in accordance with the Act. The economic regulation of South Africa's ports, as dictated by the Act and its regulation, requires that we bring about some appropriate pricing in the port system without compromising the financial sustainability of the authority. As we know, the authority remains the sole owner of the country's commercial ports on behalf of government. The ports regulator, through its decisions on tariffs, continue to reform the port pricing to bring about appropriate pricing in the provision and maintenance of port infrastructure for all the commercial ports in the country. In our instance, appropriate pricing as defined in our tariff strategy are prices that reflect the cost and all benefits derived from the use of port infrastructure, facilities and services by each segment of the port user community, or as a collective. And that means shared infrastructure, those facilities and services as well. The regulator's end goal in this regard is therefore to improve the pricing of South Africa's port infrastructure and to implement regulatory decisions that provides the right incentives for the authority to manage terminal operators so that they improve operational efficiency, thus making South African ports competitive in the global supply chain, but also to make sure that the cost of doing business in the country is managed and remain reasonable so as to facilitate not only investment, but the continued operation and the continued growth of businesses within the port sector. The following are noted for the financial year 2021 period, where the regulator, through initiated projects, processes and decisions, had to assist either the organization itself, the authority, and the port users to respond on a number of challenges that we faced as a country. The first has been the effects of the COVID-19 on the authority and the port users. As the regulator, we retained or increased, and in some cases introduced new incentives in the tariff to provide a level of relief or buffer to port users, but still allow the authority to raise the revenue required to meet its mandate. We provided and will continue to do so in providing technical support to the Minister and the Department of Transport on the issue of corporatization of the authority. And I have to say, Chairperson and the honorable members here, that the regulator is encouraged by this recent development to implement Section 3, Sub 2 of the National Ports Act, and we stand ready to monitor and support its full implementation through appropriate regulatory responses. And we have such aspects as, how do we treat the regulator as a base, the tax treatments and possible adjustment of elements of the tariff methodology for us to be able to support this course. We have been monitoring the authority's performance in implementing the CAPEX program. This is in line or in relation to where the regulator has approved the right for the authority to raise capital to implement that capital expenditure program to ensure that they provide capacity ahead of demand, which in turn must support economic recovery. The significant problems with the authority's inability to spend CAPEX must be addressed through appropriate governance processes. And we do believe that corporatization should also provide some support in that regard. By design, the regulators cannot get involved in the day-to-day running of the regulated entity, lest we get lost in the woods and lost sight of the bigger picture. However, we monitor the authority and hold the executives to account on their plans to improve delivery on their mandate to port users in the country's economy. Accordingly, within the regulatory space, we are monitoring the impact of restructuring of the authority that is currently underway, the effects of the cyber attack on Transnet that happened in July, recent fires in the ports, and performance problems at container terminals, especially those managed by Transnet Port Terminal, mostly due to reported equipment failure. Appropriate regulatory responses will be implemented. However, such responses are effectively at the tariff level, and thus end up, they tend to be reactive instead of proactive. It is imperative that there's also an effective oversight by the Department of Transport and Public Enterprises, and those charged with the responsibility to oversee operational performance of public entities. The regulator's weighted efficiency gain program, it continues to aim to address the effects of poor operational performance by reducing the authority's profits in the year where overall port performance is below previous standards. During the financial year 2020-2021, this amounted to a loss of 64 million to the profits of the authority due to poor performance. And this year, we're estimating the amount to be about 151 million. The reported performance during the 2019-20 financial year and 2020-21 is presented against this broad background. And I'm hoping that the CFO and the CEO will get into the integrities and the details of this performance as it's outlined in the presentation. With those few remarks, Chairperson and the members of the committee, we do appreciate the opportunity to give some comments and to give some outline of how we have performed, and also give the opportunity to the committee to pose questions and any other clarity that is needed from ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ubaba Victor Umnyama. Let's proceed and get the presentation. I wish that you should come back to me around 6:20, the latest. You can forge ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will open my video just so that you can see me briefly. But because of connectivity issues, I would request that I be allowed to switch it off so that we improve bandwidth. But my name is Joey Mraudzi. I'm the CEO of the Ports Regulator, effective 1st January 2021. As the chairperson has said, I'm here with Thokozani Mhlongo, our CFO, and we'll both be presenting to the committee. And as you've requested, Chairperson, we will try and pace ourselves so that we do come back to you. You said at 5:45. I'll stop the video now.
Thank you.
Thank you. The structure of the presentation is as highlighted there. It is my honor to be presenting for the first time to the Portfolio Committee of Transport, and therefore I want to touch on the background in terms of the organization, our vision, our mission, strategic outcomes and programs. Then we've summarized the annual report so that we give members a brief overview of a situational analysis of the operating environment of the Ports Regulator, looking at both service delivery as well as internal organizational issues, including highlighting some of the performance achievements for the 2020-21 financial year. I'll then take you through the highlights of the achievements per program. We have 5 programs supported by governance. And then Mr. Mhlongo will then take us through the financial performance of the organization as well as issues related to corporate services. The vision of the Ports Regulator has been retained from the time that we started operating, and effectively we continue to strive to be regarded nationally as well as internationally as a world-class institution that sets standards for economic regulation in commercial and maritime ports. And this is done through the tariff methodology as well as the tariff strategy that is aimed at allowing the regulator to ensure that we have appropriate pricing of port infrastructure, facilities and services as highlighted by the chairperson. The mission of the regulator is structured around the functions that are defined in Section 30 of the National Ports Act, which is to exercise economic regulation of the South African commercial port system, importantly, consistent with government's strategic objectives. To support the port, to support development of port industry and system by promoting equity of access to ports and facilities and services for different groupings within the port system, and to monitor the activities of the National Ports Authority so that they perform in line with the National Ports Act, and particularly Section 11 of the Ports Act, which outlines all the functions that the Ports Authority must perform. The values of the Ports Regulator that have been embraced and adopted, and that guides how we do things, highlighted there. We've looked at the acronym of the organization and the key values that we strive for and are informed by in our work is to protect values of human dignity, equality and freedom, both in terms of how we deal with each other within the organization, but also with our stakeholders, to ensure that there is respect specifically for the decisions that we take and we remain relevant in the port system. To also make sure that we achieve service delivery as defined in the mandate of the Ports Regulator, as well as have stakeholder focus. This is mainly because we are undertaking administrative action, and it is important for our processes to take into account the views of the stakeholders that are affected by the decisions that we take as a regulator, and overall to be accountable for the resources that are entrusted to the regulator by the public. the legislative and other mandates that we respond to just highlight at a broad level, Chairperson, it's the National Ports Act basically gives effect to the Commercial Ports Policy of 2002, which defined the vision for commercial ports development in the country, essentially establishing the National Ports Authority as a monopoly and therefore requiring that it be regulated to achieve the outcomes of competition in the port system. In terms of our finances, we are Schedule 3A, so we are guided by the Public Finance Management Act, and we do respond to the comprehensive maritime transport policy articulations and policy statements insofar as the development of the port system is concerned. On court rulings, we take account of what is happening in that space as it affects the mandate of the ports regulator, and we've highlighted 3 key court rulings, recent ones. The ESCOM versus NESA ruling that was delivered earlier this year, which effectively require us to, because we have a tariff methodology through which the revenues of the authority are to be determined, we need to be consistent in the application of the tariff methodology. That is what that court ruling requires of regulators. And then the Sunrise Energy and Avidia case, which went before the Western Cape High Court, basically confirmed the jurisdiction of the ports regulator over port matters, thus requiring port users in the system to take advantage of Section 46 and Section 47 of the Act that allows them to lodge complaints and appeals against the National Ports Authority with the ports regulator before they can approach a court of law. The Agribusiness versus Minister of Finance case is important to the ports regulator because, as I've highlighted in our mission, we are to ensure through our monitoring of compliance of the ports authority that there is transformation in the port system. And in the work that we've been doing, we have started to rely on the implementation of triple PFA regulations of 2017 that allows for set aside for targeted groupings. And that particular ruling, as members would know, nullified the triple PFA provisions. However, in overseeing the Ports Authority, we have encouraged them to rely on Section 9 and Section 10 of the Triple BEE Act, which allows them to apply to the Minister of Trade and Industry, and Competition for deviation and to allow for pre-qualification and set-asides. The National Development Plan, members would know that it does talk about the need for all regulators, especially economic regulators, to ensure that administered prices as an input to manufacturing is reduced to allow manufacturing in the country to be competitive and also to encourage export and trade, and also to improve efficiencies in the different sectors that we are regulating. Of importance is the 2019-2024 Mtsf Goals, and specifically the 4 areas that talks to the mandate of the regulator that we respond to, the ones that talks to the need to increase competitiveness and access in the transport modal networks through effective regulation, and intervention there being the establishment of the single transport economic regulator, of which we are meant to be a nucleus, and we know that the bill is before the committee. The second is the reduction of cost for priority sectors of government by increasing efficiencies in ports through the corporatization of the National Ports Authority, which the Chairperson has referred to. We've provided technical support to the department on this matter. And in the tariff decision itself, the regulatory asset base and how it is treated has taken account of the need for corporatization to take place. The MTSF also has an ambition of increasing growth of exports, South African exports by 4%. For the different national priority sectors. And the tariff strategy of the Ports Regulator includes differentiated pricing that favors exports with prices for export containers being lower than for import, the same for manufactured vehicles that are exported from the country. The fourth then is increased levels of investment by public entities and entities' contribution to economic growth. In this particular instance, the CAPEX program of the National Ports Authority, which we regulate, contributes to that. And as the chairperson has alluded to, the regulator is monitoring the inability of the authority to implement its CAPEX program. And because of this particular priority, has taken decisions that has enabled them to raise funds to implement the CAPEX program instead of reducing it, precisely so that they are able to provide demand ahead of capacity rather ahead of demand. The minister's priorities that we respond to as the ports regulator in terms of the the 5 pillars, we respond to 3, which is enhancing South Africa's ship registration regime, where we have an incentive that reduces tariffs for South African flagged vessels by up to 30%. Initiatives on coastal shipping and mainstreaming of participation of the designated groups, the 2 other initiatives, with coastal shipping also supported through the differentiated tariffs, where the tariffs for coastal, for transportation of goods from one port to another port within South African waters being priced significantly lower than for export containers. Against that background, chairperson and members, the strategic goals of the ports regulator, what we respond to, highlighted in this slide, and they talk to basically the implementation of regulatory frameworks within the regulator's mandate, which is strategic goal number 1, and then the second one is the need to enhance the capacity of the institution to deal with all outputs required of the ports regulator. And this is because our organic growth has been that we started off a low base, and we gradually have been building up capacity based on resources available to the organization to be able to meet the full mandate of the organization. Just at a practical level, when the organization started in 2009, we had a modest budget of about a budget allocation of about just under 5 million. And this has grown to date to the budget for the year under review was 38 million. So we've been growing quite organically and increasing the ability of the organization to deal with its mandate based on resources that are available. Goal number 3 is regulation is as good as the reputation that the organization has in terms of the acceptance of the decisions of the regulator by the industry as well as the regulated entity. And in this regard, our strategic goal number 3 is to continue to maintain the organization's reputation by focusing on delivery and excellence. Strategic goal number 4 is to monitor the authority to ensure that it complies with the Act, and we have a compliance and a monitoring function. It's one of the programs of the regulator. And then number 5 is the focus of the organization in terms of economic regulation mandate, where on an annual basis, we consider the proposed tariffs of the authority and ensure that there is provision of adequate, affordable, and efficient port services and facilities by the entity through the tariff decisions that are taken and the implementation of the tariff strategy. As I've indicated, these are undergirded by effective corporate governance with oversight by the board. I will not go into detail on this, but it just highlights the 5 programs of the ports regulator. At the bottom, we've indicated the goals that each of the program responds to. I'll just highlight that program 1 is administration and corporate support for the organization. Program 2 is economic regulation. Program 3 is industry development, which focuses on stakeholder engagements and public consultations. Program 4 responds to Section 46 and 47 of the National Ports Act, which is effectively hearing of appeals and complaints by port users against the National Ports Authority. And then Program 5 is responding to the need for, the need for the ports regulator to monitor compliance of the authority with the Port Act. If I then go into the situational analysis in terms of the external environment that pertained or applied in the 2020-21 financial year in terms of our mandate. The regulator has developed a multi-year tariff methodology as well as a tariff strategy that together comprise our regulatory framework, determining the revenues that the authority can collect annually from port users to be able to meet its mandate. That will be the tariff methodology, and then the tariff strategy then effectively was developed to redress the tariff imbalances over a 10-year period. We've been implementing it since 2015, and it indicates how the tariffs will change amongst the 3 main users in the port system, which are shipping lines and tenants, as well as cargo owners. We had a peculiar situation where cargo owners in the South African system bear the largest burden in terms of port tariffs, which means ourselves as South Africans that buy export and imported goods, as well as in terms of export, while shipping lines carry the least burden. And the strategy is intended to redress these imbalances over a 10-year period, 10 years, because that's how long it would take to effect redress without affecting the sustainability of the NPA, financial sustainability of the NPA, as well as companies themselves, because the strategy indicates that, for example, with shipping lines, their tariffs do have to go up significantly, but they cannot be changed significantly in 1 year. So it had to be implemented over a number of years. And I think in previous presentations, my predecessors would have indicated that we've achieved a rebalancing of tariffs for a automotive sector, and are working on rebalancing of tariffs for containers. In terms of the multi-year tariff methodology, the methodology is applicable over a 3-year period, and it operates effectively the same as the MTSF process, where the tariffs are set for the coming year, and then indicative tariffs are given for the outer years, providing a level of certainty to the industry as well as the Ports Authority on the trajectory of tariffs. We also have to deal with port operational efficiencies, and I'm sure members would have questions around what has been happening in our ports, because there has been significant challenges with operational efficiencies. As Chairperson has indicated, our Chairperson has indicated, we've implemented or established WIGO, and we're implementing it as an incentive for the authority to play its role as a regulator of terminal operators. And effectively, the authority earns up to 7.5% more profits for a gain of up to 10% in operational efficiencies. And where this does not happen, then they suffer losses. And we've highlighted that in the financial year under review, they lost 64 million. Port users have supported this, and with shipping lines, for example, indicating that they would rather the authority earn more because they are improving efficiencies than for them to suffer losses from congestion because of operational inefficiencies in the system. The National Ports Authority's CAPEX program, the chairperson has highlighted this. I will just touch on the fact that on average, over the last few years, the regulator has clawed back, in other words, 3 billion per year on the Ports Authority. In other words, where the authority has been allowed the right to raise revenue so that they are able to implement their CAPEX program, they've been unable to do so, which means in the following year, that the tariffs that are approved are reduced by whatever they were not able to raise in the market to implement the CAPEX program. The appeals and complaints process during the year under review, the members of the regulator were appointed in June 2020, and they had to deal with the backlog because members may remember that for a period of almost more than 12 months, the regulator did not have a board. And although the former CEO was delegated as the accounting authority, he was not able to deal with tribunals. And when the members started in June 2020, they had to deal with the tribunal backlog. On stakeholder engagement and industry development, which is a critical part of the work that the regulator does, we keep in touch with port users through participation in port consultative committees, where we socialize the outputs and the research outcomes, the outcomes of the research that we conduct as an organization, for example, on port operational efficiencies, trends on CAPEX, as well as on transformation. The COVID-19 effects on the regulated entity had to be taken into account as well in the 2020-21 financial year. And in slide 2, I'll highlight the interventions through the tariff that the regulator approved during that year in order to buffer the effect of COVID, both on the Port Authority as well as on industry players. Internally, I've highlighted the fact that members were appointed in June 2020 and had to hit the ground running. The critical critical achievement being reactivating the tribunal function and dealing with matters in the report itself. We've highlighted that there were 6 matters that were dealt with during the year under review. 1 record of decision on a matter, and the others facilitated processes where either matters were withdrawn or settlements were reached by those that brought the matters to the port regulator. Measures were put in place also for staff to be able to work optimally together with board members during or under COVID-19. With a COVID-19 business continuity plan that was developed, allowing us to adapt and adjust to the different alert levels that were announced by government. There were no material governance issues raised during the financial year, and the Audit and Risk Committee played a role in overseeing the organization and its use of resources, resulting in a clean audit that the CFO would also talk to. The internal organizational environment is affected by our funding situation, Chairperson. As I've highlighted, the total allocation for the regulator during the 2020-21 financial year was 38.8 million. This is because of reliance on transfers from the fiscus. Most regulators levy a charge on the beneficiaries of regulation as a way of externalizing the cost of regulation. However, because of the provisions in Section 42 of the National Ports Act, the regulator's main revenue transfers from the Department of Transport, and we have made proposals for amendments to Section 42 of the Act to allow the regulator to raise a charge. And such amendments, depending on the phasing of the stay and the proposed amendments, may come to the portfolio committee for consideration. And that would allow the regulator to increase its resources and be able to implement more of the activities that are required to fully comply with the mandate or implement the mandate as per the Act. Insofar as monitoring of compliance of the National Ports Authority with the Act, Chairperson, the regulator in terms of the Act does not have powers to enforce its non-tariff decisions on the Ports Authority. This means that in our compliance work, if the authority is not complying with any aspect of the Act and we make a finding, we are not able to enforce that finding without, of course, going to court, which has its own dynamics since both entities are entities of the state, and as much as possible should avoid taking each other to court. So part of the amendments to the National Ports Act is to also address the need for the authority, for the ports regulator to have enforcement powers on the regulated entity. The last, in terms of organizational environment issues that affect the ports regulator, are the transitional arrangements and the anticipated absorption of the ports regulator into the single transport economic regulator. And in this instance, whilst the regulator was part of the processes at the beginning, we are now reliant on the portfolio committee processes to know what the fate of the regulator would be at the establishment of the transport economic regulator. The challenges, this dovetails then into the challenges phase in executing the mandate of the regulator. Whilst the board members were appointed in 2020, unfortunately 2 resigned, and those vacancies are yet to be filled, which hasn't as yet affected the operations of the board. However, as more appeals and complaints are lodged against the authority, we anticipate that this would have an effect, and therefore the need for the filling of those 2 vacancies. Budgetary constraints, I have touched on that. I will just highlight also that if the stay were to be implemented effective in next financial year, the current budget allocation for the regulator would not be sufficient for the regulator to play that role of a nucleus of stay effectively. And the next one basically talks to the minimal involvement of the regulator and the transitional arrangements for stay, requiring that we engage more with the department and possibly even in the consultation processes of the portfolio committee on this matter. The need to strengthen the regulator through enabling a new self-funding model that reduces reliance on the fiscus. This will allow the ports regulator to be capacitated also ahead the establishment of the stay. Whatever enhancement and capacitation that happens now, when the regulator becomes a nucleus of the stay, can only be a positive thing because it would allow us then to play an effective role being capacitated. Towards this end, however, responding to immediate needs of the regulator, In 2018, a revised organogram of the organization was approved by the board, and that organogram still needs to be approved by the Minister of Transport in terms of the Act. And then during the year under review, we had 22 posts out of the current 27 organogram that we filled. The staff complement is obviously too small for the magnitude of the task, especially also in comparison to other regulators in the country. And the revised organogram is aimed at addressing this whilst also preparing for STAIR. In terms of highlights, Chairperson, on the tariff trajectory, the regulator has saved the port industry about 8.9 billion. If you look at the tariffs that have been applied for and what has been granted by the regulator between 2010 and 2010-11 and 2020-2021. Effectively, in the 2020-21 financial year, the decision of the regulator, where the authority had applied for a 19.74% tariff adjustment and the use of ETIMC to bring it down to 3.40%, the regulator approved a 0% tariff overall tariff increase to buffer the effects of COVID on businesses operating within the port system. This was done whilst without compromising the NPA's financial sustainability by using an innovation in the regulatory formula, which is the ETIMC, excessive tariff increase margin credit. Effectively, it allows the regulator to say when there has been over recovery to save some of that to offset future required increases. And during the year under review, there was about just over 2.5 billion of ETIMC, and we're able to use this to give port users a 0% tariff adjustment with differentiation. The incentives to respond, there were a number of incentives that were also approved. Yes, Chairperson.
I know because you are presenting, you may have overlooked the fact of my request. I am humbly reminding you about my request when I request you to come back to me on this presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. I'll take the members quickly through the incentives and then ask the CFO to go through the financials of the organization. But importantly, Chairperson, the responses to COVID-19 and protection of port users was through a 30% reduction in license fees for those that want, companies that want to operate in the port space. These are companies that will be providing stevedoring, bunkering, vessel registration, and related services. They were also allowed to pay those fees over the duration of a license instead of upfront. We introduced a 60% reduction on cargo dues for vessels that are calling at South African ports to take on bunkers. I'm sure with the SAMSA presenting to the committee, you'll be aware of the fact that there are a lot of vessels that just passes by South African waters that could bring some business. So that 30% reduction was aimed at ensuring that bunkering in South Africa is promoted. And then 30% reduction of cargo dues for South African flagged vessels. There was a 10% and a 3% reduction of cargo dues for export and import containers, respectively. It has a 10% increase in cargo dues for coal and magnetite to redress low tariffs for dry bulk in the port system. The next point has already been made, 64 million reduction in NPA's profits. Same with the remaining 3 points. I don't have to touch on that. already spoken to them. Just in terms to show members what the effect of the regulator's decision has been on tariffs in the port system. This is from 2010, 2011 up till 2021, 2022. The blue reflects what has been applied for, and the red reflects what the regulator approved, and I've talked to the numbers there. This slide just indicates two members, the ETIMC that I spoke about, which was 2.8 billion. In the 2020 financial year, we used 1.2 billion to ensure that we keep the tariffs basically unchanged from the previous year. And I think this is an important slide for members in that it indexes what has been happening with inflation in the port inflation, the revenues of the authority in red, as well as the tariffs themselves. So the inflation has been on an upward trajectory in terms of the blue line. The revenues of the authority has been increasing, in fact, doubling over the period of time. However, the tariffs have been smooth during this period through the use of ETIMC and application of the tariff methodology. This slide just shows, Chairperson, how we have been progressing in terms of how others have felt the effects of the port pricing through the decisions of the ports regulator. Chairperson, in the interest of time, I apologize. I'll just highlight in terms of the targets of the organization. We achieved 97.14% of the targets set for the financial year. And then I will not go into each of the programs. They are highlighted in the annual report itself. Maybe during discussions, we can touch on those. Some of the challenges I've highlighted during the background. I'll just then ask the CFO to summarize the financial performance and audit outcomes of the organization. I will run the slides for you, Thokozani, quickly.
I had said you must come back quarter two. I can see you are setting a new time. How long do you want me to give you, CEO?
2 minutes is sufficient, Chair.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Again, greetings to the Portfolio Committee and the colleagues from the DOT. In summary, that's the income and expenditure for the financial year where we've had under expenditure again due to COVID, where we had to rearrange our operations to make sure that we can still deliver on the APP and make sure that we also implement the budget. We have to do some budget reprioritization, and that's how much we had in the year. And the budget, that's what we submitted to DOT in the August 2021 period. For the medium term, again, we will request a committee to support. The post-regulator, as the CEO has said, that we rely solely on transfers from the fiscals. Next slide, please. In terms of audit outcomes, over the years can be seen that we have received clean audits, but in the previous 2 financial years, we regressed, and we ensure that we do implement the recommendations from the AG. That is why for financial year ending 2021, we received a clean audit, and also we ensure that through the audit committee, we present an audit outcomes action plan on a quarterly basis to make sure that we do actually correct any findings from the AG or the internal audit to make sure that we do maintain our audit outcomes. Next slide, please. And in terms of consequence in the previous years, we had ensured that whoever was found responsible for causing the organization to incur irregular expenditure, we did take disciplinary action, and then to ensure that we put appropriate measures to make sure that there's no recurrence of the findings. On corporate services, members just to highlight that majority of the staff is women at 66%. However, in terms of our budget, we're still struggling to put aside the budget just to support business that are owned by women and youth empowerment. However, we ensure that our procurement process to that extent is at a B rating of 2 to ensure that we respond to the B requirements. And in terms of the employment equity, as I said earlier, a majority is women, and also in terms of the race is majority Black, and also we try to highlight the age to implement the youth employment in the organization. As I highlighted earlier, in terms of B expenditure, we try as much as possible that our procurement process ensure that there's at least B rating of 2 from the procurement process we have at the Post Regulator to make sure that we respond to a call to support HDIs in terms of the ownership and management of the organizations. Unfortunately, due to the funding, we are not able to offer bursaries, scholarships, or internships. However, we did ensure that we support the employees of the organization in terms of their ongoing training and development. So we did support quite a number of employees, including attending at TITA. In terms of the COVID, even though that we are fully financed by transfers from the fiscals, most of the departments and SOE's budget were adjusted down during the 24 June 2020 Minister of Finance adjustment budget speech. However, we were lucky that our budget was not revised. Therefore, that's why we were able to actually meet 97% of our allocation. We did implement the risk management to ensure we respond to COVID, to make sure that we still deliver on our EPP. Chair, I would like to stop here and then welcome question of clarity from the committee. Apologies again for taking too much time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO, CFO, and the chair of the board. Honorable members, let me see hands. That Bauma Pena, that's the first hand. Second hand, thank you. Followed by Honorable McDonald, and the last will be Ubabu Shabangu, in that order. Asrakele Pambili Msonish.
Oh, sorry. Angithokoze sihlalo, ngithokoze ithuba engilikhera namhlanje ebusuku entambama ngilotshisa abalingani bonke bakhona emhlanganweni, ngilotshisa abalingani abavela Regulator of South Africa. Chairperson, I also want to congratulate the team for achieving a clean audit and the measures which they have obviously implemented. And I think maybe one of the issues that I highlighted, obviously, it's almost a non-issue, but I think it's a bit important in terms of the COVID-19 business continuity plan, because I think it's key and critical that any entity and corporate has an opportunity to move past and beyond the pandemic and not use it as an excuse not to perform. One of the questions that I have, maybe not so much in terms of the presentation, but on the 22nd of July this year, Transnet experienced an alleged cyber attack. Now, that resulted in some of the containers which were destined into South Africa not to be able to be to dock in South Africa, and some ports obviously were now at plus 100% container capacity, and therefore some of the vessels started omitting South African ports altogether and dumping containers at other ports in Africa. And I just wanted to find out the 22nd of July cyber attack at Transnet, which resulted obviously in some of the containers being dumped in other ports in Africa. How has that affected the ability of the ports regulator in terms of revenue collection? And then also, since then, for a brief period, there were no containers which were able to leave South African ports. And one other issue which was experienced there was on the issue of the only containers which were being processed at that time. If my memory still serves me correct, it was only perishable exports, and these had somewhat of a negative effect. But I think of special interest, Chairperson, is that there was a force majeure or an FM version 4 where Transnet was declared, that this was a force majeure, which in itself is with my opinion, I think Transnet wanted to just absolve itself of responsibility and liability. But I just want to check in terms of how has that affected the revenue collection of the entity, and how has that incident of the 22nd of July affected the general image of the South African or of South Africa's ability to handle its ports and everything else? Because you can imagine that if containers which were supposed to be docking in South African ports were now being dumped in other African ports, and obviously we're missing revenue, but also in terms of reputational damage, which is there. And last time we were advised that there was an investigation which was happening into this issue. As far as this issue is concerned, if the entity or the ports regulator was part of the people that were doing the investigation, or have they received any briefing whatsoever from Transnet as to what transpired there? And if they have received that briefing, are they satisfied with that briefing? And if they have done their own investigation, what are the outcomes therefore? Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have a serious interest.
Thank you very much. Mhlonishwa sirakele phambili, Honorable McD.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would also like to welcome the presentation. Also want to wish the Ports Regulator well done on the clean audit. It was well deserved, and thank you for being one of the entities that reversed the regression over the last few years and did a stunning job of getting a clean audit. I just wanted to, there's been a lot of talk about ships going to generate electricity, which are going to be port bound and in South Africa. And from the Ports Regulator, have they been in discussions with these ships that are going to be generating electricity? Because there's an environmental concern there from a lot of environmental institutions regarding oil pollution and sound pollution in these from these ships regarding and as much as that electricity is a key factor in the economy in South Africa at the moment. We must also be wary that the South African coastlines are subjected to a lot of pollution, and we must be very careful that we don't increase the pollution on the South African coasts while trying to save the economy with these electrical ships. Then, just as a note, we must the Ports Regulator must also be aware that it doesn't price itself out of the market, because I can see that the revenue has been increasing and the tariffs have been increasing, and we're going through a very difficult time in the economy. We must just be careful that we don't exceed the cost factor, so that it becomes a problem for companies to bring ships to South Africa. And that's all. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for your time, and thank you to the Ports Regulator.
Thank you very much, Honorable McDonald, Honorable Makosini Shabangu. Dr. Makosini. Okay, let's assume it's an issue of network. CEO, quickly, can you respond to the questions that have been raised?
Okay, thank you, Chairperson, and thanks for the messages from honorable members on the Port Regulators clean audit. We work hard to maintain that and ensure that we do not regress. the questions from Honorable Mabena in terms of COVID-19 business continuity or comment, that is, we accept that, Honorable Member. I think what was presented is the fact that because of the stakeholder engagement program of the regulator, where the members as well as the staff have to engage with stakeholders, because of the regulations where we couldn't have contact and travel, it has affected the budget provisions that were made for specifically that, because we had anticipated that we would have new members that would have to have outreach at the ports and meet with different stakeholders. But as the CFO has indicated, those savings to some extent were then reprioritized to deal with the backlog for tribunals that I had highlighted in the presentation. Insofar as the 22 July cyber attack on Transnet and the effects thereof on containers that had to, or cargo basically that was bound for South Africa that had to then be offloaded in other ports. And the question of how this has affected revenue collection. I think we should highlight that it would have affected the revenue collection of Transnet National Ports Authority, not necessarily the ports regulator itself. And how the regulator would deal with that is that in the tariff methodology, revenues that are generated in the port system are a significant part that that determines the adjustment to the tariffs that are allowed to the Ports Authority. So currently we're sitting with the tariff application of the authority, and we are assessing the extent to which the revenues that they had budgeted have been affected by COVID overall, and if we can isolate whether the effects of the cyber attack. In principle, where the authority has not been able to raise the revenues that are required, the methodology allows an adjustment to those revenues. However, in our current tariff methodology, a provision was made to say that where the revenue did not realize because of the fault of the authority or the terminal operators under its management, then the regulator should be able to do the tariff adjustment as if they have realized that revenue. And the criteria would then be that we should be able to indicate that it was the fault of the authority. And so far as the general image of South Africa, because of the cyber attack and the reputational damage, during the cyber attack, I had the opportunity of engaging with a number of key players in the port system. And what was interesting, member, was that most of the players that are operating in the global space were surprisingly sympathetic to the cyber attack situation, because some of them had experienced this, or their companies had experienced this at a global level. And what they were concerned about, which we would be monitoring, is the ability of Transnet generally and the National Ports Authority in particular to respond. And the issue that this brought forth was the ability of the authority or the reliance of the authority on manual systems in responding to the cyber attack, and therefore plans need to be put in place either for those systems to be faster or to have backup, so that if such an instance happens again, then the response is much faster than it was now. Generally, there was an acceptance that cyber attacks have become almost an industry in themselves. And so it's not a matter of it not happening, but if it does happen, how do they respond, and would be monitoring that. Insofar as the ports regulator investigating, I think the chairperson of the board in his opening remarks did highlight that our direct levers are insofar as the tariff process is concerned and adjustment of the revenues through that mechanism. And therefore, it is important that the different players that have oversight on the day-to-day operations of the authority then play a critical role in addressing these issues. And we are aware that the Department of Transport, through the port consultative committees, as well as the national port consultative committees, have put measures in place or initiatives to get to the bottom of this and hold Transnet accountable. And I'm sure that the department will be able to provide the members of the committee with a report in that regard. And then from member McDonald, in terms of the ships generating electricity, basically the accommodation in South African ports and the environmental concerns. I think the same point that I've just made applies to this. Section 56 of the National Ports Authority, which, of the National Ports Act, which we monitor, is very specific about how port facilities would be utilized. And it sets out a process that the authority needs to follow for the delivery of any service or the use of port facilities in the South African system. And then we are aware that this is a government priority that the Ports Authority would need to respond to. And as the ports regulator, what becomes important for us is that due processes have been followed in order for this to be done in compliance with the National Ports Act. The point about the regulator needing to be careful not to price itself out of the market, I think I need to just clarify as well, Honorable Member McDonald. The slide that I showed that highlight what the revenue of the authority has been, what inflation has been over the period of time, as well as the tariffs. That was to show that insofar as the revenue collected by the authority, the regulator has ensured that the authority is not found wanting in terms of not being able to have the revenue to fulfill its mandate. And that was done simultaneously as the tariffs themselves, which is what port users are paying, has been smoothed out so that the decisions of the regulator in 2020-2021 have resulted in prices that are effectively similar to the prices that applied in 2010-2011. So in that way, then again, with the use of ETIMC, but the application of the tariff methodology itself, the regulator has worked hard to strike a balance between protecting port users by lowering prices or smoothing prices in the South African system, whilst at the same time allowing the authority the ability to raise the revenue to allow it to be financially sustainable. And overall, yes, the regulator would always look at and strive to ensure that there is appropriate pricing in the port system. And as I've indicated at the beginning of the presentation, very much alive to the National Development Plan's imperative for administered prices to be controlled in our particular sector. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, CEO. I was told that the Deputy Minister was able to log in, and I hope we still have her with us, Valerie. Deputy Minister.
I didn't see the Deputy Minister 5 minutes ago. Let me check again. I don't see the Deputy Minister online now, Chair.
Magaipi, Ndadengwa.
Good afternoon, Chair. Just
Yes.
to put an apology for the DM. She is involved in another engagement. She had to leave the meeting, so she asked us to apologize for her.
I just want to place it on record that I was going to honor her and recognize her and allow her to say something in closing. But we accept that apology. To the Ports Regulator, PRSA. Thank you very much for the presentation. We hope you continue to work hard and regulate without any fear or favor. And we shall from time to time call you as we need you. And above it all, thank you for bringing your full contingent to the committee. It shows that you take the committee seriously. We will endeavor to give you all the support you need, and we will criticize you whenever we need to do, but also support you whenever you are asking our support. Otherwise, we are ready to liberate you from this meeting. All the best for your future endeavors. You are released, Chairperson and your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair and the members.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your clean audit. Celebrate it. Make noise about it. It shows that you are getting used to it. You did not make noise as the RSR did with their clean audit. You will make better noise, but thank you very much. We do appreciate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Honorable members, before I thank you, Valerie, when are we meeting? Just to refresh our minds.
Chairperson, the next meeting is on Tuesday, the 16th of November at 9 o'clock.
It is prudent that we should try and revisit our program of action, Valerie, because some of the events may have been overtaken by time. Just to reconfirm some aspects of the program, amongst those aspects are oversights that we need to play to different areas. I do wish that we should be able to have a common understanding of how do we move forward given the circumstances. So I would want to recommend that we revisit our program of action and just freshen it so that we are on the same level of understanding, all of us, and we do not close anybody outside without any reasons. Otherwise, I know we had a beautiful plenary session today, midterm budget, and people like Honorable Mapena will share a lot because they are financial people in terms of their views. But I also want to appreciate humbly the commitment that is continued to be shown by members, that we should continue to sit even under those circumstances. So, honorable members, I really want to appreciate the way we are conducting our business moving forward. I really want to appreciate that. And I did get some messages from other members who were still traveling from Parliament to villages like Meramadwa. I got cut yesterday It was her birthday, and I'm not too sure whether we did remember to wish her a happy birthday. If we didn't, happy belated birthday, Honorable Ramadwa.
They did, Chairperson.
On my
I
behalf.
really appreciate yesterday, they did.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm repeating now as the chair that you should know that I was gonna do it. Otherwise I was cut abruptly by load shedding issues. Honorable Mapena, am I provoking anything really? I was thinking I'm closing. Let me allow you.
No, sincere apologies, Chairperson. I think I wanted to check, man. So when are we going to meet physically? Because with this load shedding, you know, I think on 2 occasions now, on one meeting I logged in at 12, power went off, and then I was kicked out of the meeting for the rest of the day. It's like it's so unstable. And I know that in Parliament they have backup generators. And obviously there was a plenary today, you know, a lot of people survived that plenary. I mean, it shouldn't be a big problem for us to meet physical, but I'm not sure, but it's just a question, Chairperson, nothing really hectic.
Valerie, let's look at the possibility and deal with that. I'm sure the committee on itself may not be able to reach to that point, but we can contribute something positively towards that. Let's look into that. I was not inviting many hands. I was really closing.
Yeah, but Chairman, it's unfair. I was closed out of the meeting.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask questions only to find that I've been closed out. I don't know what is happening. It was not a load shedding. And I'm representing my my party. I'm not representing my jacket. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shabangu. Nobody closed you out. I called your name and I thought maybe it was network issues. I profusely apologize that you couldn't ask questions that you were supposed to ask. You know the committee endeavors to ensure that.
Thank you, Chair.
Always allow people to ask questions. You can now lower your hand if that is in order so that I can close the meeting. Thank you very much, honorable members. You are also liberated from this meeting. Let's go and do what we are supposed to do at this time. But once more, thank you very much for your commitment. The meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, 9 o'clock. Thank you very much.
All hail the chair.
Long
live the chair.
Long live.
We missed you in the house chair this afternoon. We missed you.
I can see where you are going.
Hey, long live. It's long live. Long live.